An illustration is a decoration, interpretation, a visual explanation of a text, concept, or process, designed for integration in published media, such as posters, flyers, magazines, books, teaching materials, animations, video games, and films. The origin of the word illustration is Late Middle English, via Old French from Latin illustratio, for the verb illustrate. Contemporary illustration. Contemporary illustration uses a wide range of styles and techniques, including drawing, painting, printmaking, collage, montage, digital design, multimedia, 3D modeling. Most illustrators work on a freelance basis. Depending on the purpose, illustration may be expressive, stylized, realistic, or highly technical. Specialist areas include archaeological illustration, book illustration, botanical illustration, concept art, fashion illustration, information graphics, technical illustration, medical illustration, narrative illustration, picture books, scientific illustration, technical drawing, technical and scientific illustration. Technical and scientific illustration communicates information of a technical or scientific nature. This may include exploded views, cutaways, fly-throughs, reconstructions, instructional images, component designs, diagrams. The aim is to generate expressive images that effectively convey certain information via the visual channel to the human observer. Technical and scientific illustration is generally designed to describe or explain subjects to a non-technical audience, so must provide an overall impression of what an object is or does, to enhance the viewer's interest and understanding. In contemporary illustration practice, 2D and 3D software is often used to create accurate representations that can be updated easily, and reused in a variety of contexts. Illustration as fine art. In the art world, illustration has at times been considered of less importance than graphic design and fine art. Today, however, due in part to the growth of graphic novel and video game industries, as well as increased use of illustration in magazines and other publications, illustration is now becoming a valued art form, capable of engaging a global market. Original illustration art has been known to attract high prices at auction. The U.S. artist Norman Rockwell's painting, Breaking Home Ties, sold in a 2006 Sotheby's auction for $15.4 million United States dollars. Many other illustration genres are equally valued, with pin-up artists such as Gil Elfgren and Alberto Vargas, for example, also attracting high prices. History. Historically, the art of illustration is closely linked to the industrial processes of printing and publishing. Early history. The illustrations of medieval codices were known as illuminations, and were individually hand-drawn and painted. With the invention of the printing press during the 15th century, books became more widely distributed, often illustrated with woodcuts. 1600s Japan saw the origination of ukiyo-e, an influential illustration style characterized by expressive line, vivid color, and subtle tones, resulting from the ink-brushed woodblock printing technique. Subjects included traditional folk tales, popular figures, and everyday life. Hokusai's The Great Wave of Kanazawa is a famous image of the time. During the 16th and 17th centuries in Europe, the main reproduction processes for illustration were engraving and etching. In 18th century England, a notable illustrator was William Blake, who used relief etching. By the early 19th century, the introduction of lithography substantially improved reproduction quality. 19th century. In Europe, notable figures of the early 19th century were John Leech, George Cruikshank, Dickens illustrator Ablot Knight Brown, and, in France, Honoré Daumier. All contributed to both satirical and serious publications. At this time, there was a great demand for caricature drawings encapsulating social mores, types and classes. The British humorous magazine Punch built on the success of Cruikshank's comic almanac and employed many well-regarded illustrators, including Sir John Tenniel, the D.L. brothers, and Georges du Maurier. Although all fine art trained, the reputations were gained primarily as illustrators. In common with similar magazines such as the Parisian Le Voleur, Punch realized good illustration sold as well as good text. With publication continuing into the 21st century, Punch chronicles a gradual shift in popular illustration, from reliance on caricature to sophisticated topical observation. The Golden Age. For the early 1800s, newspapers, mass-market magazines, and illustrated books had become the dominant consumer media in Europe and the New World. By the 19th century, improvements in printing technology freed illustrators to experiment with color and rendering techniques. In America, this led to a golden age of illustration lasting from the 1880s until the early 20th century. A small group of illustrators became highly successful, with the imagery they created considered a portrait of American aspirations at the time.